I woke up to 3 screaming kids and an empty bed. My wife was going to know no warning, just a cryptic text about finding herself. But when her location pinged from a luxury resort with another man, I realized this wasn't about self-discovery. It was about destroying everything we built. Here's how I made sure she lost it all. I'm Troy Bannister, 34 years old, and I thought I had my life figured out. I'm an architect, married to Sienna for 9 years, and we have 3 beautiful kids. Connor's 8, Mia just turned 5, and our youngest, Jasper, is 18 months old. Life wasn't perfect, but whose is? I worked hard, provided for my family, and came home every night. I thought that's what mattered. I thought we were building something solid together. Turns out, while I was designing buildings, my entire life was collapsing around me. It started on a Tuesday morning. I woke up to absolute chaos. Connor was screaming because he couldn't find his backpack. Mia was crying in her room because she'd wet the bed. And Jasper, our baby, was standing in his crib wailing at the top of his lungs. Normal morning stuff, except for one detail. Sienna wasn't there. Her side of the bed was cold, empty, like she'd been gone for hours. I called out for her, checked the bathroom, went downstairs thinking maybe she'd started breakfast early. Nothing. The house was a disaster. The kids were melting down, and my wife had vanished into thin air. Then I saw my phone. One text message, sent at 4 a.m. Need time for myself? Don't call. Back in a week. That was it. No explanation, no discussion, no warning whatsoever. Just gone. I must have read that text 50 times trying to make sense of it. Time for herself? We have 3 kids under 9 years old. You don't just disappear when you have 3 kids. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. 5 more times. Nothing. She'd turned off her phone or blocked me completely. The next few hours were absolute hell. I had to somehow get Connor ready for school while changing Jasper's diaper and calming Mia down. I called my boss, told him I'd be late for our critical presentation meeting, the one I'd been preparing for 3 months. The project that could make me senior partner. He wasn't happy, but what choice did I have? Then Sienna's mother Ruth called, asking if we were coming to Sunday dinner. I lied straight through my teeth, said Sienna was sick with the flu, didn't want to spread it around. The panic in my voice must have been obvious because Ruth kept asking if everything was okay. I said yes. Everything was fine. Everything was falling apart. That's when I started noticing things. I checked our bank accounts, something I rarely did because I trusted her completely. $8,000 had been withdrawn 2 days earlier. Cash gone. Then I found her iPad sitting on her nightstand, which was strange because she never went anywhere without it. I opened it up, curiosity turning into something darker, something that felt like dread crawling up my spine. In the trash folder of her email, I found deleted confirmations. Hotel bookings. Paradise Cove Resort, 600 miles away. Expensive, beachfront, romantic, and the reservation wasn't under Bannister. It was under Morrison, her maiden name, for 2 guests. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I called Dante, an old college buddy who'd become a private investigator after leaving the police force. He owed me a favor from years back, and I was cashing it in now. I explained everything, sent him the hotel details, and he said he'd drive out there immediately. Meanwhile, I was drowning. 3 kids, a full-time job, and a wife who'd apparently decided we weren't worth her time anymore. Connor started acting out at school, got into a fight with another kid, punched him right in the face. The principal called me in, and my 8-year-old son looked at me with tears streaming down and said his dad was always angry now. That broke something inside me. Mia wouldn't eat. Kept asking when Mommy was coming home, and I didn't have an answer that wouldn't destroy her. And Jasper, poor Jasper, he'd cry for hours, reaching for her side of the bed, calling for Mama. I'd rock him at 3 a.m, exhausted beyond anything I'd ever felt, wondering how the hell we got here. Work became impossible. I missed 2 more deadlines. My boss pulled me into his office and basically told me to get my personal life sorted or find another job. 9 years of dedication meant nothing when clients were threatening to walk. I was barely sleeping, living on coffee and whatever frozen meals I could microwave between diaper changes and homework help. Then Dante called. He had photos. I told him to send them. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, hands shaking as I opened the attachments. There she was. My wife Sienna at that resort, laughing, carefree, wearing a sundress I'd never seen before. And she wasn't alone. There was a man. Tall, well-dressed, confident. They were holding hands by the pool. Another photo showed them kissing. Another showed them walking into a hotel room together, his arm around her waist. Dante did more digging. The man's name was Fletcher Kane, 9 years old. Sienna's ex-boyfriend from college. Successful investor, divorced, no kids. Living the bachelor lifestyle with money to burn. Dante pulled credit card statements, something I should have been monitoring all along. This wasn't new. The affair had been going on for 6 months. Hotel rooms every other weekend. Expensive restaurants. Jewelry purchases I'd never seen her wear. All charged to our joint account. My money. Our money. Money I'd earned working 60-hour weeks while she was supposedly at book, club, or yoga, or whatever lie she'd told me that day. I went through her iPad more carefully this time. Found a secret email account she thought she'd hidden. Hundreds of messages between her and Fletcher. I read them all, every single one, torturing myself with the truth. He promised her freedom from what he called her domestic prison. She wrote back saying I was just a paycheck now, that the kids exhausted her, that she wanted her life back. One email from 3 weeks ago destroyed me completely. She wrote that she'd play housewife for 1 more week, then she was done. They could finally be together. She was planning to leave us, all of us. 7 days after she disappeared, Sienna walked through our front door like she'd just come back from a spa day. Suitcase in hand, tanned, relaxed, actually smiling. She set her bag down and called out for the kids like this was completely normal. Mommy's home. Did you miss me? She looked refreshed, lighter somehow, like abandoning her family had been exactly the therapy she needed. I stood in the kitchen doorway watching her, and something cold settled into my chest. She hadn't even looked at me yet. Connor and Mia ran to her, confused and desperate for their mother, but they could feel the tension. Kids always know. I told them to go pack overnight bags, that Grandma Ruth was picking them up in 20 minutes. Mia started to protest, but something in my voice made her obey immediately. Sienna finally looked at me then, her smile faltering just slightly. Once the kids were gone, I walked to the kitchen table and spread out the photographs. Every single one. Her and Fletcher at the resort, holding hands, kissing, entering the hotel room. I watched her face drain of all color as she registered what she was seeing. Then, just as quickly, the shock turned to rage. You had me followed? Are you insane? That's stalking, Troy. That's psychotic. She was yelling now, pointing at the photos like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I stayed calm. Eerily calm. It was unsettling even to me. I told her I didn't need to stalk her when she was using our joint credit card to fund her affair. I showed her the statements, 6 months of hotel rooms and fancy dinners. Then I showed her the emails, printed out her own words condemning her. The ones where she called me a paycheck, where she said the kids exhausted her, where she planned her escape from our marriage. That's when her defense started crumbling. The anger shifted to justifications, desperate attempts to make this somehow okay. You don't understand what it's like, Troy. I've been trapped here for 9 years. I'm not just a mother and a wife. I'm a person. I have needs. I fell out of love with you years ago. Each word was like a knife, but I didn't flinch. I asked her about Fletcher. She admitted everything then, said she'd reconnected with him at a college reunion last year. He made her feel alive again, reminded her of who she was before marriage and kids. She said I was boring, too focused on responsibility, that I'd let myself go. She blamed me for her choices, for her affair, for everything. Then she demanded a divorce. Said she wanted to move in with Fletcher immediately, start over, be happy for once in her miserable life. I mentioned that I'd had Fletcher investigated too, that I knew things. Her eyes went wide, panic replacing the self-righteous anger. She lunged across the table and slapped me hard across the face. You have no right to invade my privacy like this. No, right? My cheek stung, but I didn't react. I just stared at her until she stepped back, suddenly afraid of my silence. Then I told her to pack her essentials. She was leaving tonight. This house was no longer hers. Sienna didn't know it yet, but I'd been 3 steps ahead of her the entire time. While she was slapping me and screaming about privacy, I'd already filed for divorce 2 days earlier. I'd hired Miranda Cross, the most aggressive family law attorney in the city. The one with an 87% win rate in custody battles. Miranda had reviewed every piece of evidence, every email, every receipt, every photograph, and she'd smiled. She actually smiled and told me this was the easiest case she'd had in years. Abandonment, infidelity, financial fraud, all documented perfectly. Sienna had handed me everything I needed to destroy her in court, wrapped up with a bow. I'd closed our joint accounts the day after Dante sent those photos. Moved everything into a separate account in my name only, documented every dollar she'd spent on her affair, $23,000 total. Hotels, restaurants, gifts for Fletcher, new clothes, jewelry I'd never seen. The law calls it dissipation of marital assets, spending money on an affair instead of the family. She'd have to pay it all back. I'd also filed for emergency temporary custody based on abandonment. A judge had already granted it. Sienna didn't even know yet that legally she couldn't take those kids anywhere without my permission. But the real revenge, the part that satisfied something dark inside me, came from what Dante discovered about Fletcher. Fletcher had told Sienna he was divorced, free, ready to start a new life with her. Except he wasn't divorced. Not even close. He was still very much married to a woman named Claudia, living in a house 2 states over. With 2 teenage daughters, he saw every other weekend. The whole bachelor lifestyle was a lie. He kept an apartment in our city for work, used it as his affair headquarters. Dante contacted Claudia directly, sent her everything. Photos of Fletcher and Sienna, hotel receipts, the emails where he promised to leave his wife. Claudia filed for divorce within 48 hours. Fletcher's world collapsed faster than mine had. His wife took everything in the initial separation, froze their accounts, kept the house, turned his own daughters against him. And then he did exactly what I knew he would. He panicked, cut off all contact with Sienna immediately. Blocked her number, blocked her emails, refused to see her. She showed up at his office 3 days after I kicked her out. Desperate and crying, and security escorted her out like she was a stalker. She called me that night, hysterical, begging to come home. I hung up. The social destruction happened on its own. I didn't have to say a word to anyone. Sienna's own mother, Ruth, had seen the evidence when I'd shown her, preparing her for the custody battle. Ruth was horrified, disgusted that her daughter had abandoned 3 children for a fantasy. She called Sienna once, told her she was ashamed to call her daughter, then testified against her in court. Our friends, the people we'd known for years, they all saw the truth. Social media did the rest. Sienna's reputation was obliterated. Meanwhile, I focused on my kids, went back to work, and watched karma do exactly what it does best. Destroy people who deserve it. Court day arrived, and I watched Sienna walk in looking nothing like the confident woman who'd returned from that resort. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes, wearing a cheap blazer that didn't fit right. She couldn't afford a decent attorney anymore, so she was representing herself. Big mistake. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Holloway, reviewed the evidence with growing disgust visible on her face. Every email, every photo, every receipt. When Sienna tried to speak, tried to paint herself as the victim of a controlling husband, Judge Holloway cut her off mid-sentence. Mrs. Bannister, you spent $23,000 of marital funds on an extramarital affair while abandoning 3 children under the age of 9. I've seen enough. The ruling was swift and brutal. Full custody to me. Sienna got supervised visitation only, twice a month, 2 hours each time. She had to repay every dollar of the dissipated assets plus child support based on imputed income, since she had no job. She walked out of that courtroom with nothing. No house, no savings, no children. Just her clothes and a future she'd destroyed with her own hands. Watching her unravel over the next few months was almost sad. Almost she took a minimum wage job at a retail store, the kind of place she used to shop at without looking at price tags. Now, she was folding clothes for $9 an hour. Living in a one-bedroom apartment in the worst part of town, driving a 15-year-old car that broke down constantly. Her supervised visits with the kids were painful to watch through the coordinator's reports. Connor was polite but distant. Jasper didn't even recognize her, cried when she tried to hold him. And Mia, my sweet Mia, refused to see her at all after the second visit. She looked at me with those big eyes and said, "She left us, Daddy. She's not my mommy anymore. I didn't force it." Fletcher's karma was just as satisfying. His divorce from Claudia wiped him out financially. She took the house, the cars, half his business assets. His reputation in the investment world crumbled when word got out about his affair, about the lies. Clients pulled their money, partnerships dissolved. He tried reaching out to Sienna once, some pathetic apology about how things got complicated. She cursed him out so loudly that neighbors called the cops thinking there was a domestic dispute. He ended up alone, broke, with his own daughters refusing to speak to him. The man who'd promised Sienna freedom had nothing left to give anyone, including himself. Meanwhile, my life rebuilt itself, piece by piece. I finished that major project at work, the one I'd nearly lost. Got promoted to senior partner 6 months later. The kids thrived with stability and routine. Connor made honor roll. Mia started ballet and smiled again. Jasper took his first steps, and his first word was da, da. I cried that night, holding my son, realizing that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the beginning of something better. I'd lost a wife who never really loved me, but I'd gained something more valuable. Self-respect, my children's trust, and the knowledge that I'd never settle for less than I deserved again. It's been a year now since that morning I woke up to an empty bed and 3 screaming kids. A year since my world fell apart, and I had to rebuild it from scratch. Sitting here today watching Connor practice soccer in the backyard while Mia draws pictures at the kitchen table and Jasper plays with his toy trucks. I barely recognized the broken man I was back then. The custody arrangement became permanent 6 months ago. Sienna sees the kids twice a month. Supervised visits that she shows up to maybe half the time. When she does come, it's awkward and forced. The kids have moved on. They've built a life without her, and honestly, they're happier for it. Sienna never recovered from any of it. Financially, she's still struggling, still working retail, still living in that tiny apartment. Socially, she's a ghost. Our old friends don't talk to her. Her own parents barely acknowledge her existence except to see their grandchildren through me. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she tried dating again. But no one wants a woman who abandoned her 3 kids for an affair that blew up in her face. And Fletcher, the man she destroyed everything for? He got married again 6 months ago. To someone else. Someone younger, richer, more successful. Sienna found out on Facebook. I know because she called me that night, drunk and crying, asking how her life had gone so wrong. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I learned a lot about myself this past year. I learned that I'd ignored warning signs for too long, that Sienna's unhappiness had been visible if I'd wanted to see it. But I also learned that her choices were hers alone. Being unhappy doesn't justify abandonment. Being bored doesn't excuse betrayal. You don't get to sacrifice your children's well-being because you want to feel alive again. Actions have consequences, and karma doesn't forget. It just takes its time making sure the punishment fits the crime. My kids taught me that too. Their resilience, their ability to forgive me for the chaos but not her for causing it, showed me what real love looks like. Unconditional, present, consistent. Life has moved forward in ways I never expected. My mother helps with childcare now, and we've built this tight family unit that's stronger than anything Sienna and I had. I started dating again recently. Met someone through the kids' school. A teacher named Rachel, who's patient and kind and doesn't rush anything. The kids like her. That matters more than anything else. Sienna is just a cautionary tale now, a reminder of what happens when you chase fantasy over reality. When you think the grass is greener anywhere but where you planted it, she wanted to find herself on that solo vacation. Instead, she lost everything that actually mattered. Her children, her home, her family, her dignity, and me. I found something better than the marriage I thought I had. I found peace in being the father my kids deserved, the man I should have been all along. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just building a better life without the person who tried to destroy yours and never looking back.